All right, folks, it is Wednesday, May 7th, 2025, and a lot's going on in the world. We'll be talking about that here on World Edition, and we'll see who joins us later on today and all along those lines. But definitely a lot's going on in the world. Pax terror bases were hit twice during Operation Sindoor, according to sources that are following what's going on in India and Pakistan. Pakistan says 26 killed in Indian strike as tensions rise after that Kashmir massacre. So residents of Pakistani Kashmir say they fled into the hills during the Indian strike. And new pope will face a complex moment in history, senior cardinal says, before the conclave begins. So Cardinal Dolan of New York shares his conclave advice: bring a book. So cardinals are watching Conclave, the movie, for guidance on the actual conclave. So definitely we'll see how this all works out and what goes on in that sense as well. So definitely, hopefully in the next few days, a new pope will be picked and all along those lines. So they've actually started the process and are, commencing with their process of getting a new pope elected and all along those ways. So definitely that is something that folks are talking about. Israel calls to evacuate Yemen airport amid fight with Houthis, and definitely Houthis assessing $500 million damage from Israeli strike on the airport, and it sounds like they might be vowing some retaliation as well. So definitely a lot going on in that Middle East conflict as well. Houthi says the U.S. backed down, and Israel not covered by a ceasefire. Trump declares a truce with Houthis, but Israel is still at risk, is what is being reported by the Wall Street Journal. Trump says the U.S. will end the bombing of Houthi militants in Yemen. So definitely that's what's going on at this particular moment. A bruised Merz wants to prove he's a strong leader in his first foreign trip as a chancellor. Friedrich Merz has a tough job as Germany's chancellor. It's just got tougher, is what some folks are saying. So definitely it looks like we'll see what he can do in terms of getting some unity in that part of the world and everything like that. So they have their leader, and now he's got to find a way to bring unity and to bring some changes into Germany as well. And Friedrich Merz is to visit Warsaw and Paris in his first trip as, German Chancellor to stress European unity. And a jam-proof Russian drone just blew up a Ukrainian HIMARS. So Xi Jinping is set to arrive in Moscow as Putin's guest of honor ahead of the Victory Day military parade. So Ukrainian drones strike Moscow hours before the leaders arrive for the World War II parade. So Ukraine and Russia are trading air attacks ahead of the World War II anniversary in Russia. And fighter jet landing on USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier goes overboard, forcing pilots to eject. So definitely that's something that is going on as well. And India just agreed to a massive trade deal, but it's not with the U.S. The Britain-India trade deal is a sign of things to come. So UK-India deal secured as Trump tariffs everywhere and all along those lines. So that's something else we're seeing in the news also. And Netanyahu's plan for Gaza risk dividing Israel, killing Palestinians and horrifying a lot of folks as well. So 6 European nations reject any demographic or territorial change in Gaza. So they're rejecting any territorial change in that part of the world as well as any demographic change. So definitely seems that CNN is reporting that Netanyahu is choosing war in his political survival as Israelis are demanding a hostage deal. And Trump plans to announce that the U.S. will call the Persian Gulf the Arabian Gulf, officials say. So it looks like he's over there trying to change the name of things, much as he did with the Gulf of Mexico and all along those lines. So it looks like they're going to be an effort to change the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Gulf. And this definitely is something that people are talking about as well. So a lot of folks are looking at that and seeing how that will play out also. So definitely that's something that folks will be dealing with and thinking about in this particular moment. And Gaza malnutrition on the rise as Israeli blockade enters its third month. The situation now is so beyond imagination. And IDF is preparing a distribution hub in southern Gaza. Satellite photos reveal that. And after 3 years of full-scale war in Ukraine, Europe announces its plan to ban all Russian gas imports by the end of 2027. So Slovakia's prime minister slams the EU over plan to end Russian gas imports by 2027. So Slovakia and Hungary have rejected the EU plan to phase out Russian gas by the end of that particular time frame and all along those lines. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about and looking at as well. So a lot of people are paying attention to that and seeing how that is going to play out and what that might involve and what results will be involved in that whole situation as well. So, like I said, lots going on in the world. We'll find out what's going on in the United States as well, just so we can keep track of all of these number of stories that are taking place and all in that way and see what's happening in a number of places in the world and around the world. So in terms of the United States news, there's a lot going on here as well. So the anti-abortion movement readies its game plan for Trump 2.0. So they are seeing what they can do in the sense of being against abortions and all along those lines. Real ID is now required for air travel in America, and the Real ID deadline is here. And there are some people that are looking at how the process is going on along and what might be going on as the deadline is here. So definitely there was even a report in the Detroit Free Press, your guide to Real ID in Michigan, deadline, how to get it, what it looks like, and more. So a lot of people are still scrambling to get their Real IDs. And Biden criticized Trump for modern day appeasement in Ukraine. That's not who we are. So Biden criticized Trump in a BBC interview, and Biden said a raucous Trump meeting with Zelensky was beneath America. And Joe Biden said Trump is not behaving like a Republican president. So definitely the Bidens are definitely being critical, well, at least Joe is, of the whole Trump administration. Trump threatened tariffs are so large that 10% feels like a relief. And even in a recent article, Trump did say in a press conference or some press information that he was putting out that no deals have been made as of yet. He didn't say that he wasn't going to have some deals. I think he said he might even be presenting some deals to different countries and everything. But as of now, no deals have been signed in terms of the tariffs. And he made that statement, I believe that was yesterday. That statement came out and all along those lines. So definitely lots going on in that space, and we'll see what other folks have to see about it. We'll be joined by others eventually, but I do see that I've got Rick with me, and he'll be coming on as well. Republicans search for a backup plan in a crucial Georgia Senate race, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is trying to put herself out there as a possible person. So Marjorie Taylor Greene versus the Senate. And the Washington Post reported why the GOP should be scared. And definitely some people are even asking why Brian Kemp said no to a U.S. Senate bid in Georgia as he passed on that Senate race in Georgia after months of private lobbying. And an alligator killed a woman canoeing on Lake Kissimmee. So a kayaker killed in an alligator attack in Central Florida. Alligator attack kills woman canoeing with her husband on Lake Kissimmee in Florida. And the FWC confirmed the fatal alligator attack in that part of the world. And Representative Raji Krishnamurti launched a bid for the U.S. Senate. So he's jumped into a crowded Democratic race for the U.S. Senate. And we'll see how this goes as Representative Robin Kelly announced to run for the Senate also, making her the second candidate to enter the race. So it looks like there's some active races going on there in Illinois on the Democratic side. And the EU is considering tariffs on Boeing jets, according to a report that's out there now. And the EU is making progress toward a £50 billion trade deal with the U.S. Trade Commission, tells FT, and all along those lines. So it looks like there might be some counter tariffs, and we'll see what that goes on as well. And Lori Lumber hammers Trump ally for back-end Medicaid cut. So those seems like these 6 Republican red lines could complicate Trump's policy plans. So Mike Johnson apparently is facing a GOP centrist revolt on Medicaid. So there's some folks that are maybe even revolting out of the Republican Party that are more centrist and everything. And the Supreme Court stayed a lower court ruling allowing Trump transgender ban to proceed. So the Supreme Court allows Trump's ban on transgender troops. So they're letting Trump enforce the transgender troop ban as cases proceed. So we'll see what goes on in that space. And China agreed to U.S. tariff talks, but is likely to play hardball. So U.S. and China to hold high-level trade talks in Switzerland this week. As far as the stock market today, planned U.S.-China trade talks have lifted sentiment, and the Dow opened slightly higher. And I'm sure that Sasha will be talking about that on Modern Investment later on as well. But we'll see how this all plays out. And Trump's Oval Office meeting with Carney didn't reach Zelensky level tension, but it wasn't all neighborliness, being neighborly either. So it wasn't being all neighborly as well in that space. But Trump surprises Canada and Carney with a new message. We love you is the new message. So Canadian Prime Minister Carney tries to disarm Trump with real estate talk. So Trump claimed that the U.S. doesn't do much business with Canada, but Canada is the world's top buyer of U.S. exports. So that might be another one of those misstates and all along those lines. And an alleged leader of a 6-state fentanyl trafficking ring was arrested in Salem, Oregon. So a 36-year-old Salem man arrested as part of the largest fentanyl bust in DEA history. So a man in Salem was among 16 arrested in what U.S. is saying is the largest fentanyl bust in nation's history. The Sinaloa cartel leader was among those 16 that was arrested, according to the U.S. Justice Department. Alcatraz 2.0, former FBI agent, is floating perfect new prison site that would scare even the most hardened criminals. So definitely some people are saying that Trump's plan to open San Francisco's Alcatraz is a logistical black hole. So definitely we'll see how folks go in that and what happens in that space and what goes on in that kind of way. Trump's low approval rating 100 days in doesn't mean his voters have regrets, according to MSNBC News. So Trump's popularity in a slump in California amid abuse of powers concerns, but there are still a lot of folks that are still behind him and all along those lines. And a Republican senator, that being Thom Tillis, says he'll vote against the pick for U.S. attorney and all along those lines. So definitely, actually, I think that was for the position if the DC officer and everything like that. So that might have not have been the one with Thom Tillis, but a GOP senator of a different ilk is refusing to back Trump's federal prosecutor pick as well. But I didn't know that Tillis was refusing to back the one in DC also. So we'll see what goes on in that place. And Trump administration plans to send migrants to Libya on a military flight. So U.S. may soon deport migrants to Libya on a military flight, according to what some sources are reporting. So Trump administration plans to send migrants to Libya's horrific detention centers. So definitely we'll see what goes on in that space. And J.D. Vance's brother advances to Cincinnati mayoral general election despite winning just 13% of the vote. So J.D. Vance's brother will be running for Cincinnati mayor. So incumbent Aftab Paravel, J.D. Vance's half-brother Corey Bowman, to face off in November. So it looks like J.D. Vance's half-brother might be getting into a race as well. So we'll see how this all goes in that situation. 5 charged after a deadly migrant boat incident in California. 5 people charged after 3 dead and 1 missing in an alleged human smuggling operation in San Diego. So that's something that was going on in this area. A dad in coma, son dead, and 10-year-old daughter missing after that migrant boat capsized and all along those ways. But definitely that's something going on. And in another area that I know that Rick is familiar with, that being the West Coast, wow, what on earth happened? University of Washington students shocked by protest damage to lab equipment. So Trump administration opens an anti-Semitic protest probe into UW after the protest unrest. So the University of Washington faces Trump administration and anti-Semitic scrutiny over anti-Israel protests. So like I said, lots going on in the world. I'm going to bring in Sasha Starr and Rick Rosner and see what they've got to say about a number of these stories that are going on. So what's on your mind?
Trump doesn't give a crap about anti-Semitism, really. He just wants to F with the universities. And
so he doesn't.
Just because there are, loud, pro Gaza protests on a university doesn't mean in most cases the Jewish students are being oppressed. It's horse shit. I mean, I'm sure there are like individual incidents where, Gazan protesters or just troublemakers, like at UCLA, some headbusters, some Proud Boys came in because they saw it as an opportunity to just get in fights. But does that mean the university's anti-Semitic? No. But let's hear from Sasha.
Sasha?
Well, he plans to vacate Gaza somewhere. He plans to bring people to Libya. Among his plans, very few of them actually realized. So I don't know if we have to spend time to discuss his plans. Most of them, or almost all of them, or maybe all of them, will never be realized. Full stop, period. That's about it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and everything. Speaking of that, for both you and Rick, one of the other things is we know there was all that controversy about him wanting to, change the Gulf of America to the Gulf of America, and apparently now he wants to do the same thing in the Middle East. So he wants to change it to a whole other name, and I'm going to try to get to it. But apparently he wants to change the sea's name in that area as well. So what is it with Trump and these whole
stuff out of his ass? He just says whatever he wants. And in his first administration, there were some competent people around for a while who would manage to talk him out of bullshit. Now he's had 8 years to recruit just true believer dipshits, and they let him do whatever he wants, say whatever he wants.
But what's interesting is that everything what he does and what he's talking about, he's trying to please a very small crowd of so-called MAGA. And if you take that about a third of the country voted for Trump, and the MAGA represents only about 10% of the people who voted for Trump. So now we are talking about 3% of Americans that he's trying to please with his ideas and talking points, or I don't know how you want to call it, lunacy, whatever. What about the rest, 97%?
He's a bad businessman. He's lost more money in business than any other American in the 80s and 90s. And yet playing to just the tiny percentage of Americans instead of going for the center. One of our most popular presidents. It doesn't seem so now because, we've had 30 years of him not being president, and to think of him as kind of being a creep. Bill Clinton, while president, became very popular because his people brought him the polls and said, you got to move to the center. That's where your popularity lies. He moved to the center. He adopted some more conservative stances about welfare, about crime, and it gave him immense popularity. Trump could improve his standing among Americans by 20%, going from 45% approval to 55 or 60% approval if he would just adopt popular positions instead of being a troll and running an administration of trolls.
Yeah, he's running as a troll. One I was getting ready to get to, which I was trying to think of it, is he wants to apparently change the name of the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Gulf, as if anybody really cares. And that's going to make a difference on that many maps and everything along those lines.
Why? What is that? That doesn't even promote America.
Right. It's just changing one day from another.
What is that, like a favor to Saudi Arabia, our oil producing friends over there?
Maybe that's what he's thinking is going to be a favor to them and all along those lines. Another story that I saw that was somewhat scary, and I don't know your thoughts around this and everything, but apparently ICE agents went into various DC restaurants, and it's been a minute since I've been to DC, but I've been there a while back, and they asked to see the staff's I-9 forms. I don't know many people that actually carry their I-9 forms with them and everything, and apparently they were targeting businesses and restaurants in DC. So we need help, DC, on high alert.
Theater. It's just to play to, as Sasha said, to the MAGAs. Now, if you look at all Republicans, 82% say that they would vote for Trump again in one survey. and which some Republicans are saying, woo, 82. But that's low for a president. It's that he means he lost 18% of the people who voted for him, or maybe a little less for the Ida knows. But yeah, it's he's playing to the small group of people who are.
Well, speaking of playing to people, apparently there is some pushback because there's the I think it's 15, 50, 50, 51, 50 twice and one people that have been doing protests, and now there are these various lawsuits. So several states are suing Trump over his war against wind. So the states are suing Trump for the executive order he put blocking wind energy development, because he's done all these executive orders. So Democratic-led states are suing to block Trump's halting of wind projects.
He generally loses in court, but he just won in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said that the military can go ahead and kick out trans people,
right,
which is at least 4,000 troops out of 2 million, and which is horseshit. That once somebody is, transitioned to be the gender they want, they can be very effective, or even during transition, probably. But if you've seen videos of female to male soldiers, some of them are the most savage mofos you have ever freaking seen. Pumped full of testosterone, able to bench press 280. That if you need people to go out and shoot at people and tussle with people and kill them, or if you just need people to freaking ride a joystick and direct drones, there's nothing wrong with trans people in the military. It's bullshit.
Sounds like a lot of BS in that sense and everything. I got another question for you, because it comes down to one of your favorite topics, which is reality TV and all along those lines. But what is it with Cincinnati? Because then Cincinnati's
a nice town. My mom's from Cincinnati. It's beautiful.
It's a nice town, but they seem to elect interesting people, because it seems to me there was a reality star. I'm trying to remember
Jerry Springer.
Yeah, Jerry Springer. I think he was
Jerry Springer wasn't always like the host of a show where people went on to be like violent dicks. He was I think a decent, public official who gravitated towards the chaos because that's where the viewers were.
Yeah, that makes sense and everything. And now we've got J.D. Vance's half brother.
He was mayor of Cincinnati.
Right, and J.D. Vance's half brother wants that same job and everything. So we'll see if he gets it, because apparently he only got 13% of the vote, which is a very low vote total.
I assume it was some kind of primary where the top two finishers or something have a runoff. So it probably means the other finisher got like 40% of the vote, and J.D. Vance's brother will probably get his ass kicked in the general election. Also, we don't know if J.D. Vance's half brother, whatever he is like a posturing dick like J.D. Vance is. Maybe he's a good guy. I don't know.
I don't know. Got to do some more research on him and see what's going on in that sense. But it could be quite interesting in that way.
Yeah, but my family had to move out of Cincinnati because it's so nice. It's got so many trees, but the pollen was killing my grandmother. It was too green. They had to leave and they had to move to Albuquerque, which is very not green. So she was,
Hey, Sasha, what's your take on the economy? I think yesterday I had found out that Meta had fallen slightly, that being Facebook, but now I saw that the economy is bouncing back to some degree, I guess, after this meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister. But what is your take? And I know you'll be talking about it on Modern Investment too, on the current state of the economy.
I think all economy and markets, they are all being taken hostages by Trump. And it's a purpose. It's not happening accidentally. It's completely in Trump's hands, and he tremendously enjoys this powers that he acquired. For example, if you remember, it was a Liberation Day, so-called, when market collapsed on April 2nd, when all these tariffs were imposed. A week later, he said in the morning, now it's time to buy stocks. And a couple of hours later, I think around 11, no, around 1 o'clock to be correct, he announced that everything is postponed for 90 days. So the market went up accordingly. So it jumps up and down according to not earnings, not any financial or investment considerations, but a word of one madman, one con man, one criminal, and this is where all economy is being taken hostages by one madman. Can you imagine that situation? I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
And right now, if market could drop, the good thing is that if market, I will discuss it on financial show at 1 o'clock, if the markets could drop so much on his announcements of the tariffs. So any announcements about canceling the tariffs could lead to market going to higher numbers that they are now. It's a theory. It's nothing guaranteed of that, but it's at least logical conclusion. And we'll see what's happened very soon.
Zuckerberg said something else yesterday. He said that in the future, most people will have more AI friends than human friends. And he says, all your advisors, and, they'll be AI. And I don't disagree with him. And it sounds creepy, and because it is, but I grew up without the internet. My kid never didn't have the internet. And the people, Jatovi's kid and everybody else's, people who are 10 years old, 15 years old now, they will always have had AI around them. They won't find it creepy. They'll find it normal. But it's coming.
So, and that is what he's predicting, and I did see something along those lines, but I also saw something, speaking of creepy and all in that space, and maybe Jacoby's got some thoughts on both of these, but there was all this talk about these deals, like 200 deals, even though I don't think there's 200 countries and everything like that, but he's had all these deals that were all
freaking deals.
And that's what he said yesterday, is that there is no deal that has been made, so now he's going to present some deals to the countries, and that they can either agree to the deal or not agree to the deal, depending on the terms of the deals that he presents to them and everything. So now he's saying he's going to present deals to the rest of the countries because there was no deals that came
when has he listened to the frickin' country? He listens to the last person who was in the Oval Office with him, to whatever they told him. That's what he goes with.
So he just goes with whatever the last person said.
That's a theory, that when he comes out and he says something, it's because the last person who got in there and kissed his ass was able to sneak in some kind of message about what he should do, and he's like, okay, I'll do that.
I can see that. That could be the way of new government. Jacoby, what's your take on this whole tariff situation, and also this notion of your kids, as Rick just said, not having any friends, even though I know that both of your kids
I'm not
have
saying
friends.
that. I'm saying that I'm sure, every kids have freaking friends. I'm just saying in the future that today's kids, when they're grown up, they'll be used to swimming in the AI world and just talking. There's I watched a really good movie on the plane back from my kid's wedding, Companion. Excellent. It's super fun movie and it's got some AI individuals in it. And, a lot of stuff happens. It's really fun.
Sounds like it. Toby, any take on that?
On what's going on and, the tariffs and stuff?
Yes.
It's stupid.
So speaking of stupid, what is your thoughts, Jacoby, about this notion? Because last time I checked, and I could be wrong, I knew some people that were associated with this country and everything, but Libya has been a enemy of the state and enemy of the United States for years, but Trump is going to send these folks that are not from Libya to the known and notorious prison in Libya.
Just quickly, Libya is a failed state. They have no effective government. We killed Gaddafi, a very bad guy, but without Gaddafi, it fell into chaos. You're sending people to, at least El Salvador, there is a government. Libya, it's like a bunch of warring factions, and you're sending people to even more hellish hell than El Salvador.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. But apparently there was a win, and I want to hear y'all's thoughts on this because, like I said, back on Monday on one of our other shows, I did have the pleasure of talking to the gentleman that was former DEA, and apparently there has now been a big bust in one of the major cartels, the Sinaloa cartel, and apparently they've got a 6-state fentanyl trafficking ring that has been somewhat busted because they got 16 folks and a large haul of fentanyl. So is this going to put a dent in the fentanyl trafficking, or is this just a minor victory for the United States?
Minor, Jacoby.
It's not going to do much of anything.
So,
I mean,
so when
80% of the fentanyl comes in from U.S. citizens. So what is this going to do? Nothing.
also when you take out a major hit against one of the cartels, it just means the other cartels feel stronger, and then you end up with cartel war, where, in Sinaloa, you're going to see, I think there are a bunch of, murders going on. I mean, that's business as usual, but even more so when you weaken the main cartel in a place, then you get cartel war, you get gang war. Does that stop the fentanyl? I don't know. We know that, that 80% of the fentanyl, I'm sure they're working with the cartels, but it's brought over the border at ports of entry by U.S. citizens, hidden in vehicles. It's not being, backpacked over the scrub in Arizona, over a mountaintop in Arizona by coyotes and Mexicans. It's people driving pickup F-150s with like, half a kilo taped up in a wheel well or some crap.
Yeah, that makes sense and everything like that. I think both you and Toby have done some recent travel, and all along those lines, you just came back from Europe, but today is the deadline for the Real ID. It doesn't really concern Sasha as much unless he's planning to come through this area, and I guess they got their own ID system in Canada and everything, but do the two of you, because I know I still don't have mine. I got to get it at some point. I'll be late.
It's great for rich people. It's great for, I'm pretty much retired. So my wife and I, if we want to take a cruise, we just take our freaking passports. We have passports because, we're freaking elites. So I've got Real ID. So does my wife, because my wife's very organized. She got on my ass to go get it. But even if we didn't, because we're fancy people, we got passports. And the Real ID thing, is one more way to F with, the less organized, the less, the poor people. It's probably mostly bullshit.
Do you have your Real ID, Jen Toby? As you already got yours, or in the process of getting it, even though today is the deadline?
I thought I did when I did, because they offered that a long time ago for your license. Yeah, I did that because it was a star. They just put a star in your license in North Carolina. That was years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it is good to have it. I mean, because it leads to like getting effed with less. At the airport, you can get like TSA pre-check and all sorts of stuff where you can leave your shoes on. You don't have to take your crap out of your bag, though. Like how much of an issue really is having to take your shoes off twice a year.
Well, the Shadow has come back and had some comments, so I'll read his comment and see what y'all got to say. But he said, I saw a cartoon where Trump was on and punched him in the face, and they were blaming Joe Biden. Unbelievable. The Kool-Aid must really be good. So he was saying, yeah, go after the people who can't really speak for themselves. Tough guys, aren't they? So that's what the Shadow had to say. So what are your thoughts around that? Because there does seem to be a lot of blaming Joe Biden, because I've even seen Trump saying that, all the good parts of the economy are his, any bad parts are Biden's.
I mean, just again, he's playing to his rabid base and makes the rest of us crazy, and his base loves that it makes the rest of us crazy. Somebody has been calling, and probably a lot of people have been calling, it's an administration of trolls. They come out and they say cruel crap, and they, when somebody, some innocent, some 4-year-old cancer kid on chemo gets deported, most Americans are like, oh my freaking God. But the MAGAs are like, yeah, the mom shouldn't have been broken the law. That's what you get. They love like liberal tears.
Well, speaking of liberal tears, one of the things that he's always talked about is his view of wars and what he's going to do in wars and everything. And, there have been a couple of times that the U.S. has lost wars. Vietnam comes to mind. There are a couple of other ones as well. But are the MAGAs going to care that apparently the U.S. has backed down and they've declared a truce with the Houthis? But there's even some thought that Israel may still be at risk. So Trump says the U.S. is going to end the bombing of the Houthi militants. And
he says it's not a deal. He says they've reached an agreement where we're not going to bomb them, they're not going to bomb us. But he says it's not a deal. So I mean, he just like he's constantly pulling stuff out of his ass. He's constantly the bad kid in the principal's office when the media asks him stuff, and he just says whatever to try to weasel out of it. And when he's not trolling us, he's BSing us.
Yeah, the thing is, when he said that he bombed the Houthis and it did all this. Well, Biden had been bombing the Houthis too. Still the same thing. The shipping route is still having troubles because the Houthis are still there. So what he's doing, just like Rick said, it's just a bunch of he's putting on a show to make people believe whatever he believes or whatever he says, and his people will repeat it. They won't look into it. They won't ask questions. They'll just say, "Hey, this is what Trump said, so that's what's true." It's not true. The man can never be trusted. The man, whenever he says anything, you have to actually look into it. I mean, as you pointed out, Mark, he said on microphone, the good things are Biden, or the good things are Trump. The bad things are Biden. That's dumb. That tells you BS right there.
That's total BS. But there seems to be one to hear maybe Sasha's thoughts as well as yours, Toby and Rick's. There seems to be a centrist movement within the Republican Party, and apparently that is what is concerning folks as far as the budget and even the saving of Medicaid. But there are still non-centrists like Marjorie Taylor Greene that are thinking about running for the governor or the Senate of Georgia.
She's super interesting right now because she is attacking Trump on some stuff, and she's calling bullshit on some bullshit. Because I think it's been fun to call her an idiot when she's said idiotic things for the past, 4 or 6 years. But she might not be an idiot. And if she's going to run for statewide office where everybody in Georgia has to vote for or against her, she knows she's going to have to change her positions. And I'm all in favor of that. I'm all in favor of a brash loudmouth if she's going to be speaking out against bullshit. I mean, I haven't liked her in the past, but the new Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's moving towards the center and away from Trumpy crap, that's an interesting person to watch. On the other side, John Fetterman, senator out of Pennsylvania, may be losing his mind. He's had mental issues. He's had medical issues. He's supposed to be on medication to help him with depression. He might be off his medication. People are saying he's melting down a lot, which is too bad because he's a guy who famously doesn't give a shit and says whatever he wants, which has been good, but it's not good if the stuff he's saying or doing is because he's having mental crises.
You got those mental crises. The shadow said,
also mental crises. Nancy Mace.
Yes.
Seems to, at least according to the Libs, seems to be drifting into increasingly erratic behavior.
Yeah, she might be getting erratic as well and everything. I was talking, it was actually on one of our other shows that airs after they air originally on their own network and everything, with some folks that were talking about the Met. So I was just wondering your take, even though you're in the West Coast, Rick, but apparently the Met has gotten incredibly expensive, even though it's raising money for the Met there in New York. But apparently the Met Gala has gotten incredibly expensive. But I just wondered, is this one of them cases of folks just being able to afford the rich life and being able to pay for these $100,000 tickets? Because apparently that's how much it goes for, or something along those lines. It's a very expensive ticket to get.
I don't know. There's always been expensive crap. When you look how much it costs to go to the Super Bowl, the cheapest ticket is like $2,000 or something. The market will find ways for rich people to blow their money. There's a book from 100 years ago called Theory of the Leisure Class by Thorstein Veblen. And it talks about, I think, conspicuous consumption. And one of the points the book makes is you're not really rich unless you can afford to blow in big sums of money on absolutely nothing. So yeah, if you can spend $100,000 on one night at a party, that kind of indicates you're really rich.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Everything. Just really quickly, because I think this is the second time this happened, and I want to get to something I know Sasha is going to be interested in. But what's going on with our fighter jets and our planes and everything? Because apparently yesterday another plane landed on the USS Harry Truman, went overboard.
So the fighter jets need to be towed around the deck. And apparently, if they have to dodge Houthi missiles, the deck is pitching, and they're juking around, and they can lose control of a plane, and they fall into the sea. And this is the second time that's happened. Yeah, so I assume the admiral or whatever who's in charge of the ship will probably be replaced.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, Sasha, just really quickly, what's going on with these drone attacks? Because I did see earlier today, and I know y'all talked about it a little bit yesterday on the Ukraine, Russia, China show, but apparently a jam-proof Russian drone blew up a Ukrainian HIMARS, and then the Ukrainian drones struck Moscow hours before this lavish parade that Putin is trying to have. So what's going on with this drone warfare between Ukraine and Russia?
Today, Ukraine has much more advanced technologies, a much better equipped army, much more motivated army. This is why Ukraine doesn't need peace with Russia, but they cannot openly announce that. So Zelensky is playing a very clever game. Okay, so he agreed with U.S. proposal to have a month-long ceasefire. Hey, guess what? Russia doesn't want to have any ceasefire, except they offered 3 days, which Ukraine actually disagreed with, and Ukraine is not going to hold any ceasefire at this moment. So Russia is at their mercy to destroy their military parade on May 9th or so on. But we'll see. Maybe Ukraine should announce to the world and US, first of all, that of course, while they have technical ability to destroy Russian Red Square, where the parade is going to be, and kill as many people as possible while doing that, but they are restraining themselves. And although they can, but they will not do that. And they would get a lot of points. Maybe they will still do that, but that would be very, very good move for them politically and from many other aspects. So Zelensky is playing cards that Trump will eventually get so upset with Putin for delaying, for playing a game with him. So Trump will put so much efforts into defeating Russia, although indirectly, but through Ukraine, of course. So he will give Ukraine all kind of weapons that it requires. And Trump already started to help, and it's getting more and more bigger and bigger help for Ukraine. So I think that that's probably where we are going to see the more and more help to Ukraine, including military, probably new sanctions against Russia as well. And it's about time, because the Russian threat was hanging over not only West, but over the world for the last 80 years. Enough is enough. There is a country Ukraine, which can diffuse and stop Russian aggression and stop the threats of a nuclear war. So why you would not be interested to for Ukraine to finish the job?
Yep, that's an interesting take on along those lines. Just really quickly in that same space, you still got that Mickey Mouse thing going on, Nick. What's going on with your mic? But yeah, you got to adjust the mic settings and everything. Yeah, take him out while he adjusts his mic settings and everything like that because he's got some mic things going on. Hey, Rick, what is your take on this whole notion of what's going on with India and Pakistan? Because those are two big countries that we talked about yesterday.
This morning on Morning Joe, they listed all the other times stuff like this has happened. It happens every few years, like 8 times since 2002. They've come to this point. I feel like they need to show aggression to each other. They don't get along, and they have to push back on each other. But throughout recent history, they've had somewhat reasonable leaders who aren't going to do totally crazy stuff like deploy nukes. Well, they have nukes, but they're not going to use them. And I hope this is one more of those times. If one of them ever got like a true Trump in charge, some idiot who knows no limits, then we'd be in trouble. I'm hoping this isn't one of those times.
So which war are we talking about? Are we talking about India, Pakistan?
Yeah.
Yes.
Russia? Are we talking
India,
about
Pakistan? India, Pakistan constantly fight.
Yeah, I know that because they're Hindu Indians and they're Muslim Indians. They don't
right, and they're always fighting in this high altitude
war
called Kashmir.
Let's say if they had a nuclear war and they lost 3 or 4 million each. They have hundreds of millions and billions of people. So what does it mean?
They have
a lot of dead bodies.
It's bad for the world because we've had a taboo for 80 years against using nuclear weapons in war. Only twice have nuclear weapons, bombs, been dropped on cities.
And who dropped these bombs? Who dropped them?
We did, but it was horrible. It was horrible enough that we haven't done it in 80 years.
Yeah.
And so if the taboo against, because these guys wouldn't, India and Pakistan would not, if they used nukes, I don't think they would because they know that would make them the pariahs of the world.
Right.
But that if they did, they wouldn't use them the way the U.S. did in World War II. They would use a tactical nuke and they wouldn't kill 200,000 people in a minute. They would drop it on some troops and they'd kill like 20,000 troops and maybe not destroy a city. But if people see, oh, well, that worked, that's bad because then it becomes conceivable to use nukes strategically or tactical, whatever the frickin'.
What? This could be a real problem. What would happen to the stock market if that happened? I better ask Sasha because now I'm worried. Would that affect my stocks? That's the important thing.
Well, as I said earlier, what's happening right now, and you saw it on Liberation Day on, I believe, April 2nd, that all, and not only US, but all world, is being taken hostages by one madman, by one con man, by one criminal who is enjoying playing the game. So there will be some pain, he says. And then on a week later, he says, it's time to buy stocks at 9 o'clock. And at 1 o'clock, he announces that the tariffs are being postponed for 90 days. Okay, it's about 100 days past. Where is at least one deal about the tariffs being renegotiated or removed or anything? One, he's saying that there are 90 countries are in line to kiss his ass, asking to remove or renegotiate others. So where is this 90 countries? Why wouldn't you do at least
Sasha,
10, 15
Well,
deals?
Sasha, today he said none.
hold on. One thing. When Sasha says, Trump says at 9 o'clock buy stocks, and at 1 o'clock, he makes his announcement, and the stock market goes crazy. That does not help regular people. That helps rich people buying individual stocks. Regular
That's all
people.
purpose. That's all purpose.
Wait a minute.
Let me finish my point. Regular people own mutual funds. You don't get to buy the mutual fund until the market closes, and the market hasn't closed. You get the closing price. So if you listen to Trump and you bought mutual funds, you wouldn't make any money as a regular person because you wouldn't get to own the mutual fund till the end of the day when the market has already shot up.
Okay, you anti-Trumpsters, let's bring some facts in since you guys are too busy watching MSNBC and CNN, the Communist News Network. Here's the facts. When Trump's first 100 days, he added 177,000 new high-paying jobs. He had relentless pursuit of manufacturing dominance.
He didn't add 170,000.
Now it will move production of its vehicles to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. AstraZeneca announced it will shift production from Europe to the United States. Walmart expanded American-made products. IBM announced
Walmart abandoned American-made
for the
products.
next 5 years. Pratt Industries announced $5 billion investment, adding 5,000 manufacturing jobs.
Nick,
Kimberly-Clark announced a complete quiet
No, I can't because you're just rambling off talking points.
investment in the U.S.
None of it's true.
jobs. Corning
None of
announced
it's true.
$1.5 billion.
Nick, none of it's true.
Merck announced a $1 billion investment.
Nick,
Delaware, and then $9 billion in the next 4 years.
Nick,
Since an
none
advent
of it is true.
Act, Merck
Nick,
allocated more $12 billion to our domestic manufacturing.
Nick,
Amgen announced $900 billion. You just
none
go
of it's
around
true.
and look at this guy. He has
Nick,
brought a lot of business.
Nick, no, he hasn't. No, he
And
hasn't.
you communist in
No, he hasn't.
Canada
Nick,
can't stand it.
Nick,
You communist
you
on
just
the right
ran off a random list of talking
That
points.
is
All
reality.
untrue.
is the facts.
Nick, that's not a fact.
And all you
Nick,
can do is try to overtalk me because
No, I'm just trying to point out. You just ran off a random list.
garbage. Now,
Nick,
Jatoni, I know you've
You
been
just
trying
ran off a random list
The
of
floor is yours.
talking points.
You interrupt me all the
I
time.
know because you're just right. You're just listing a random list of talking points. Everything you said is untrue. Ask Foxconn, who was supposed to open up a whole in Trump's first administration, where they announced a big investment from Foxconn that was going to happen in Michigan, if I remember. That never happened. Never, ever, ever happened. So when you're announcing these things, none of it is set in stone. None of it ever happened. It's a show. That's all it is. Your 170,000 job number, that's not high-paying jobs. None of them are. I mean, well, I'm sorry, a few of them are. Not all of them, as you stated. But how many has he lost? A lot. Then on top of that, if you look at the stock market is still lower now than when he took office. The stuff that he gained back from Liberation Day, he's losing again. So all these things you keep randomly talking about are just talking points that were put out by the Trump administration as show points. None of it is holding true.
177,000 jobs isn't, I mean, it's a decent month, but it's less jobs than Biden added per month for the past, I'm looking at like 3-4 years. Biden added an average of more than 200,000 jobs per month over his entire administration. Now you can say, well, part of that was bounce back from COVID, but not all of it, especially, in the later years, Biden had strong job growth that outpaced 177 just about every month.
And check this out, Rick. Remember just a few months ago when Biden was still president and they had to adjust the numbers lower. Remember when that happened and it became, this whole outrage and, oh my gosh, they're lying about the numbers and blah, 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 blah. that number was still higher than 177,000. It was still higher than what just they, because remember, just recently they had to adjust the numbers under Trump in what was it, March? Or no, I'm sorry, in February they just had to readjust the numbers, so they had to readjust them lower.
Well, you get more information every month's numbers get adjusted because
the numbers get adjusted
constantly.
constantly.
They're going to get adjusted again, and they're probably going to drop again. So that 177,000 that Nick just ran and raved about is probably going to get adjusted lower.
Yeah,
So
I did have a quick question for Nick because I know we've only got a few minutes to go, but apparently, and I know this is going to be a fun for him because it's one of his favorite whipping people and everything. But the former president Biden criticized Trump for modern day appeasement in Ukraine, and he also said that the raucous meeting between Trump and Zelensky was beneath America, and that Trump is not behaving like a Republican president. So he was actually even criticizing him as a Republican. So I thought I'd throw that out to you since I know that you're a big fan of former President Biden.
But Biden was okay on policy. Biden was terrible on his public presence. He freaking hid in the White House, and he was telling everybody it was going to be okay. Everybody around him was saying, yeah, we'll just do our jobs. And yeah, Biden looks old as shit, like talks old as shit, moves like crap. That'll be fine because people will see all the good that's being done and they'll turn to the good. And also the Republicans will self-destruct in their badness. People will be appalled. And I just read an essay talking about the long history, the 10-year, 15, 20-year history of Republicans doing crazy bad stuff, and editorialists saying, yeah, well, now it's time for America to turn against. No, nobody turns against the Republicans, and nobody turns towards the good. You have to get out there. You have to message like crazy. You have to flood people with bullshit to get them to think the way you want them to think.
Yeah, just really quick. The last thing I was going to ask Sasha, do you think that it's modern day appeasement? Because that's what he's saying, is that he's trying to appease Ukraine and all along those lines, and I guess appease Russia by extension and everything. So what do you think of Biden's quote that it's modern day appeasement is what Trump is doing?
I think that's what he was doing. I think no more. I think Trump realized, although late, but still, that Putin is playing him. He's just playing for time. He continues this horrible murder of Ukrainian civilians daily, every day and every night, regardless what Trump says or what he doesn't say. It doesn't matter. Putin continues his murderous strategy in killing a lot of innocent civilian people. He's not fighting Ukrainian army, because Ukrainian army today much stronger, much more effective, much better equipped than Russian army. And Russian army avoids at all cost fights against Ukrainian on the front lines. What they're doing is they're doing the terror of innocent Ukrainian people. That's all. Russia is a terrorist state. Putin is a terrorist himself. And I think maybe it just hit Trump. What is he doing? He wants to have a Nobel Prize. He wants to have go into history as the greatest president of all time. And he is trying to do some kind of a deal with the murderer. I think Trump figured out that that's not the way to do it.
He's desperate. Trump is desperate.
Yeah, he is. He has nothing to show for the last, 100 and some days. There is nothing. Okay, so he closed the border. That's the easiest thing what he could have done, and he's done. Thank a lot. What else? Nothing. Zero. Actually, a lot of things what he was trying to do, they are negative. They are affecting livelihood of American people. And we'll see what's going to, American people selected Trump to become their president. Maybe they will have regrets sooner or later. Maybe some already have regrets.
There might be some people already regretting, but we're going to end right now. I know at 1 o'clock we've got the Modern Investment Show coming our way. We've got other shows coming today as well, including Weed Wednesday, which will be coming later at 3 o'clock, and a number of other shows, including Follow the Brand at 7 o'clock this evening and everything. So we're getting ready to get on out of here, and I'll catch you fine gentlemen on tomorrow.
See you at 1.
See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye.